Hello, everybody.
Hola, ¿cómo está? How you doing? Hi. Welcome.
This is the live Nano Pitchapalooza.
We are live, people.
We've never done this before.
No.
We've done Nano Pitchapaloozas for about 6 or 7 years now. They've always been via our website, never in person. So we are really excited
yes, we
for
are.
this.
Can you sense the excitement? Can you feel it in the air? That's what that is, excitement. So we have a lot of stuff to get through. So we're going to start quickly. First, I would like to introduce us. We are the Book Doctors. This is my partner in crime. She is the author of 9 books. She's been an agent for over 20 years. She's also an entrepreneur. She started a company called Little Mismatch that began by selling socks that don't match in packs of 3s. That company blew up to the point where they now have stores all the way from Disneyland to Fifth Avenue in New York City. But perhaps most importantly, she's the mother of my child, Arielle Eckstut.
Hello, everybody. And I'd like to introduce my partner in crime, who is the author of over 16 books, maybe 17, 18
Possibly.
at this point. The first of which was a national bestseller, and the last of which was on the cover of the Sunday New York Times Book Review. And he writes in all different categories, from memoir to middle grade fiction and from sports to reference. Many of his books have been optioned by Hollywood. And in fact, he was an actor before becoming a writer. And he is also the father of my child.
Thank you.
And this is David Henry Sterry.
Thank you.
So we're really, we have a lot to do, a lot of pitches to get through, but we want to do some housekeeping before we start so everyone understands exactly what's going to happen.
Okay, so this webcast is part of NaNoWriMo's I Wrote a Novel, Now What months. So NaNoWriMo.org/nowwhat. Links appear in comments. We're watching a recording. While we watch, it'll be taking notes. Encourage everybody you know to keep writing during Camp NaNoWriMo, which happens in April. There is a link to that, campNaNoWriMo.org. Recording will be available. To view this, use the same URL you're using to watch live or visit our YouTube channel. Chat box, write sidebars for chatting with other participants and for leaving questions. We will answer as many as we can. The live chat will not be archived. If you purchase a book,
it will be archived.
The live chat will not be archived.
Oh, the live chat.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Someone wasn't paying attention.
I'm sorry.
Hello?
But just to be clear, this entire Pitchapalooza will be available.
Use the same URL or go to our YouTube channel. If you purchased a book, one of our books, The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published, and we will be having a free webinar to anyone who's purchased our book on April 5th. Now, there's hundreds of pitches that are going to happen today, and only 25 of them will be critiqued. However, if you buy one of our books, which is dirt cheap right now, The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published, we are putting on, you just email us, david@thebookdoctors.com, with some kind of receipt, and we will be doing a free webinar on April 5th, and everyone who participates in that free webinar will have their pitch critiqued.
And you have until March 15th to buy the book.
Right.
And our publisher has done something really special just for Wrimos, which is that they've made the ebook $1.99 from today through March 15th to make sure that everyone can get a copy. It also comes in hard copy form as well, and it is 500 pages packed full of information of everything you need to know about how to get your book published. So no matter what, it will be a helpful resource for you.
For tech reasons, if anything freezes, you can email our assistant at Christy@thebookdoctors.com. Christy, that's KRISTI @thebookdoctors.com. Her email is in the chat box. If your video freezes, try refreshing the browser. Problems continue, try closing all the other applications. Now, here's how NaNoWriMo Pitchapalooza works. We've read all these pitches, and we have chosen 25 of them to critique here today. All right, share tips online using hashtag NaNoWriMo. You can tag us at the BookDoctors. Okay. Oh, and the ebook version of the Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published is $1.99 through March 15th, which is crazy. I'm just saying it again. I can't even believe that our publisher did that.
And the last thing is that while we are going to pick a winner today, and we're going to explain that, we also have something called Fan Favorite.
Right.
And we're going to be posting the 25 pitches that we will be reading today on our website at thebookdoctors.com on our blog. We'll be posting all 25 pitches, and you can vote for your favorite pitch. And that person will win a free hour consultation with us, which is worth $250. So that's a great thing to do to help your fellow writer friends.
And we should say that many NaNoWriMo participants in Pitchapalooza and just nano writers that we work with have gone on to get big deals. Have gone on to get publishing deals with great publishers and now have books that are happily winging their way out into the world. The last thing, if you'd like to receive info on publishing or anything, we have a newsletter that goes out on a regular basis. You can just go to our website to find that newsletter. Okay.
Sorry about all that. We had to get it out of the way.
All right, we're ready to go.
So here is how Pitchapalooza works. We are going to read all 25 pitches one at a time, and then we are going to critique them, so that you can learn what makes for a great pitch. What's so interesting about Pitchapalooza that people say to us all the time is that whether they hear their own pitch or not, they come away with the tools to know how to improve the pitch that they are writing. So I know it's disappointing if you don't hear your own, but I promise if you listen that you will come away with all kinds of ideas about how to make your pitch better. And a pitch is such an important thing because it can be used whether you're going to an agent, whether you're going to an independent publisher, or whether you're self-publishing, because the pitch becomes the description of your book that goes up on Amazon, on the back of your book, etc.
And wherever you go with you, someone says, what do you write? You're writing a book. Oh, you have a book out. What's your book? That's your pitch. So to make that as great as humanly possible is in your best interest as an author. All right, and again, remember, if you don't get picked this evening, buy a book, send us an email, you will get to participate in the free webinar. All right, are we ready?
I think we are ready.
All right.
Oh, did we say what the winner is going to receive?
No, we didn't. By golly, we didn't. The winner will get an introduction to an agent or a publisher who's right for their work from us. And again, you know, so many people, not just NaNoWriMo, but all kinds of writers from, you know, teenagers to octogenarians and everything in between have gotten book deals as a result of pitching to the Book Doctors.
All right, you're going to start.
Now, shall we? You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Start. All right, number uno. The State Beverages Club by Janelle Green. The last time Claire Watkins saw famous Jam Study, that's a band, play, she ended up sobbing on the sidewalk outside Verdigris Town Hall. Verdigris Town Hall as an ambulance drove away. Now the band is getting back together, and somehow an invitation to their reunion showed up in Claire's mailbox. Despite all advice to the contrary, Claire kind of wants to go. Not just because her ex-boyfriend is the guitarist, and not just because their best song is about her dead dad, and not just because she spent 3 years selling their shitty t-shirts and cassette tapes, but because when she lost the band, she lost the only leadership position she ever loved, president and founding member of a club designed for bored-stiff band girlfriends, even the ones she hated. The State Beverages Club follows Claire as she relives and tries to reclaim her merch girl years and abandoned friendships. From the pioneer plains of South Dakota to a tomato survivalist festival in Ohio to the alcohol-soaked campgrounds outside the Indianapolis 500, Claire struggles with her own still bubbling bitterness, and searches for the courage to face the pain they left in her wake. She left in her wake.
She left in her wake.
Okay, there it is.
So there's so many things to like
Yes.
in this pitch.
There are.
And the number one thing that I love about it is the specificity.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of wonderful details in the pitch. From, you know, where is the merch girl? Like, that's just a phrase I haven't heard before, but it stuck with me the whole time. And details like selling their shitty t-shirts and cassette tapes bring us back to the cassette tape. It gives you an image immediately. And I see a real journey here as well. The plot is accessible through this pitch in under 250 words, which is a hard thing to do, but it gives me confidence that this writer can create plot.
The Tomato Survivalist Festival. Wow, that's so cool. Well, I don't even know what that is, but I kind of want to go, and I don't even like tomatoes. And it's got some, you know, some gravitas to it. Her ex-boyfriend is the guitarist, so you know there's going to be some kind of thing going on there. And their best song is about her dead dad. Like, I like the way that was just sort of thrown in there, but it gives you something to think about, and it makes you think the stakes are going to be high. So all in all, I like this pitch a lot. How can we make it better? There are no comparable titles for everybody. This is a very important thing. It's a way of sort of shorthanding your book so that an agent or a publisher or a bookseller or somebody, a reader, can say, oh, it's like this book and that book. Oh, if you like these two books, you're going to love this book. I also kind of don't get enough sense of some of the funny, dramatic, inciting incidents that are going to happen when she decides to go back into this world. I kind of would like to leave us on a cliffhanger where this happens and this happens. Oh my God, is the whole thing going to go up in flames? To find out, read the book.
Yeah, I would say that I would assume that there's going to be some sort of romantic subplot in here, especially because the ex-boyfriend is there.
Right.
But we're not actually getting a hint of that. And I think that's important for a book like this. It reminds me, it's sort of like Almost Famous meets High Fidelity, or sort of that kind of thing. And in both of those, you know, the romantic plot lines in Almost Famous.
Almost Famous, absolutely.
Yeah. So so I think that would be an important thing to do. But I think this is a great start to the Pitchapalooza and a very professional pitch.
Very professional.
So
well done.
I'm going to read this. Okay, next pitch. In Vermeer's Shadow by Josette Abruzini. What if Johannes Vermeer, the beloved Dutch painter, and Antony van, wow, that's a hard one, van Leeuwenhoek, the uneducated cloth merchant who discovered microbes, were friends. Such is the premise of this 55,000-word middle-grade historical novel, In Vermeer's Shadow, the tale of a scientist and an artist. Young Antony is sent away to school following his mother's remarriage. He thinks his friend Johann, with a loving family, is the luckiest boy in Delft. As a 16-year-old, Antony must surrender his dream of a formal education and submit to an apprenticeship. He vows to live an honest life as a cloth merchant. Johann's paintings bring him adulation, but his uncompromising artistry results in a host of challenges he is ill prepared to deal with. Amid political chaos, Antony must choose between honoring his friendship with Johann and maintaining his reputation as an honest man. In Vermeer's Shadow is a carefully researched novel about friends whose lives are shaped by love, war, disease, and new ideas of Holland's golden age. Does Antony find the love that he missed as a child? How does he reconcile his need for truth and his friendship with Johann? Does he become the scholar he had always hoped to be? A former teacher, I've designed this cross-curricular vehicle to introduce the history of 17th century science and art, all within a compelling story. This past July, I was published in STEAM Ed magazine and in Down Home magazine. If you're curious to read more, I'd be thrilled to send my manuscript your way.
Well done. Very well done. It seems like Vermeer is someone that modern readers just can't quite get enough of.
Yeah.
The girl in the blue dress.
The girl with the pearl earrings.
Pearl earrings,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
Yeah.
So this has so much going for it. I particularly like the way at the end the writer said about being a teacher and how there's cross curriculum. Like if I'm an agent or a publisher, I go, an opportunity to sell books. And nowadays, I just can't emphasize how important it is that a publisher knows that you're going to be an active participant in the selling of your book, and you're going to have tools that and a platform, which is sort of a way of reaching your public, that is going to make it easier for them to sell books, which is of course, paramount right now. I would also say I like the way these two historical figures, maybe they knew each other, maybe they didn't, are combined. So we sort of get art and science rolled into one, and the families all, and how they meet as a kid. It seems like a story that a middle grader could sink their teeth into. Now.
Okay, so I have a few things. Our daughter is a middle grader, and I would love to introduce her to Vermeer through a book like this. However, when I look at the age of the character, it says 16 years old,
right,
which puts it far out of what is typically middle grade range.
That's generally YA.
Yeah,
16.
So sort of top of middle grade is 13. So I don't know if it's possible for you to lower the age. The other option is to make this YA, but then you get out of sort of you get into a whole other territory. It's harder to introduce students to these kinds of characters without a lot more adult material in there. So if you could make them 12 or 13, I think that would be ideal. And I'm thinking of another middle grade book that our daughter just read called True and Nell, about Truman Capote and Harper Lee as young artists, middle grade years. That might be a really good comp title for you, and something for you to think about as you move forward. So that would be a red flag to an agent or an editor, the age difference in calling it middle grade. But other than that, I think there's a lot of promise, really interesting work here.
I would say there's a couple of also vague things this is where the pitch is at its worst for me. Amid political chaos, I don't know what that means. Like, and there needs to be some sort of dramatic incident that shows us, that's sort of telling me instead of showing me, their lives are shaped by love, war, disease. I mean, that could be from any number of books. It's sort of, when it descends into that sort of generality, and loses the specifics, it sort of loses us as readers as well. Eh bien. Life is like a free throw. Isn't that true? By N.L. Nelson. Open quote. Someone just killed my sister. Close
sister.
Quote. Someone just killed my sister. Close quote. The year is 2004, and fear fills the back alleys and parks of Washington, D.C. Nightclubs close and children go in hiding. Rumors surface that the organization Blue is behind the rebuilding of Shade. And just when girls, with a Z, find a good man, the Roadhouse Boys, with a Z, rise again. Banker by day, baller by night, 31 years old, Treshawn D. Brown has only one goal: to get back on the basketball court and represent the Minnesota Timberwolves. With the help of his friends, club bouncer Derek Walker and auto mechanic Xavier Rush, he may get a second chance to fix a costly mistake that sidelined his career 2 years ago. If he can just hide his 2-year relationship with his flamboyant lover Spencer Johnson, avoid his nemesis Anthony Singletary, and reveal the cryptic messages of Men of Twilight, then certainly he can get one more shot at the pro circuit. Life is Like a Free Throw is the first novel by author N.L. Nelson. This journey explores men who love basketball, other men, and a good back alley brawl. Anyone who has a dream will want to follow the exploits of Treshawn and his boys as they try to follow their destiny, get their man, and make DC proud.
Great.
Very well done. Claps.
So the reason that David said out loud, boys, girls with the Z, is because that adds voice to the pitch. So we can get a sense a little bit of the writing inside by those kinds of details. It's very different than writing girls with an S and boys with an S. And same with me. The reason I corrected David when he was reading to say sister instead of sister is, once again, it's the flavor of the book.
No, flavor.
Flavor
Thank you.
of the book. So what I love about this book and what was surprising about it is that the twist of our protagonist being gay, which I did not expect until it comes out almost at the end of the pitch. And I think that's a terrific hook, because this seems very traditional sort of heterosexual male book, guy trying to get back into the NBA. And then we have the gay theme here, which makes it so much more interesting. So I love that. And I think that there's also a number of very specific publishers which would be looking for a book like this. So I think that's terrific. And I love the trajectory of trying to get into the NBA. The part that leaves me sort of like, huh, is this whole setup about what's going on in DC, because it's not really woven into our main character's journey here. It seems like two different plots going on. And I would have liked it in the pitch to introduce the character first, give us the setting, and then allow us to see how these two things come together.
I also didn't understand some of it. The organization Blue, behind the rebuilding of Shade, I don't know what that means. The cryptic messages of the men of Twilight. You know, you only have 250 words. Every single word has to be of paramount importance. And I just didn't understand what that was. And, you know, you say that he likes a back alley brawl, but I didn't see any evidence that this writer is capable of creating a quick scene where there's violence and tension and all that kind of thing. There's, for my money, a little bit too much telling and not enough showing. Him playing basketball, the violence there. And then, again, no comparable titles. That's a very important thing for any book. But a book
actually,
like
we
this.
had a Pitchapalooza winner who wrote a novel about a hockey star who is gay.
Who's gay.
Who,
right.
who is now a published author.
Yes, he is.
And Michael Gurley is his name, Gurley, which might be a good comp for this book. But really great elements to that pitch.
And again, you know, publishers are looking for things that are similar and yet unique. So we haven't quite seen it, but it's familiar, and this book does that.
Okay, so we have a pitch without a title, but it's by Wadzamute. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I apologize. From 1976 to 2008, in an ever-changing country, from civil war to civil unrest, a story of 3 generations of women in the same family. They experience displacement within Okay.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
All of a sudden, Christy just told us that the person who wrote this pitch said, I just crashed the internet, but we promise it was not you. So I'm sorry, I'm going to start this one again just so that it's uninterrupted. From 1976 to 2008, in an ever-changing country, from civil war to civil unrest, a story of 3 generations of women in the same family. They experienced displacement within and without against the backdrop of Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, from civil war to independence and economic inflation. Meirati is a widow who loses her farm to her husband's brothers after his death. The inheritance laws in 1970s Rhodesia do not include women. Still, she survives. Rati briefly fights in the Civil War, where she endures physical and psychological trauma. To escape forced conscription in the rural areas, she travels to the city and marries Lovemore, a businessman who becomes wealthy after Zimbabwe's independence. Along with his wealth come mistresses, or quote-unquote small houses. Rati shares her husband with other women. Her estranged daughter Mooney immigrates to the United States to escape the dysfunctional home. She attends university on a scholarship and struggles as an international student. A crisis at home forces Mooney to return and confront her past. The 3 women run from their circumstances, but struggle in their new homes. This is a story of family, immigration, and its struggles, as well as the story of discovering oneself in the midst of hardship. It is a story of undiagnosed trauma and returning to one's roots to begin again. Beautiful.
So there's so much to like and about this pitch, and it seems so unbelievably relevant in today's world that we live in.
Yeah.
And the stakes, we always say, well, what's at stake in this story? The stakes just couldn't be any higher. And as someone who, I sort of know about the revolution of Rhodesia, I kind of know, but I'm interested. I don't know enough, I feel like. So this book sort of invites me in through this personal story, which is, that's what great books do. It shows us a macrocosm through the minutia of these characters in this story, and it's great. Now, for me, when the pitch is, again, when it's sort of vague, it loses me. And the whole first paragraph seems, I don't know, a little bit telling me as opposed to showing me. And when the pitch says, she endures physical and psychological trauma. I don't know what that means. That could mean anything. I need more specificity about that because it's going to come back in the end. I like the way that the daughter then comes to the States and is drawn back. There just seems to be so much going on here. And again, when it gets specific, her husband's name is Lovemore.
I love that.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and
great.
The mistresses, small houses.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are the sort of things that elevate this pitch, the specificity of those, and make me think, oh, this is somebody who really has something new to bring to the table.
Yep. So I love the setting and the taking us back to this particular time, and a time, by the way, when women did not inherit property.
Right.
Which it seems impossible that this would be mid-70s, and yet it's true.
It's like out of a Jane Austen novel,
it is,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's one thing that stuck out for me right away is that it says this is a book about 3 generations of women, but we only see 2.
I thought that too. Yeah.
It seems as if our main character, Meirati, is really where the focus of the book should be. Not that you should, I like the paragraph about her daughter, and I think that works well, but I think forget about the 3 generations. You don't need to say that. I would focus on the 2 and maybe give us a tiny bit more of a taste about why they are estranged would be helpful, so that the stakes of them getting back together have more of an impact. But I do think that this is a story for right now, and something that I would love to read.
That's interesting in a pitch. It's almost as important what you leave out as what you put in. Because sometimes by making it shorter, you can focus on more on what's there rather than try to cram all the stuff into the story.
Okay.
Eh bien?
Eh bien.
Okay. Racing the Suns, that's S-U-N-S, by Karen Pepin. Open quote. Walk or die. That is what we are taught, close quote. Survival depends on the clan's ability to travel constantly, heading north to avoid the scorching heat of summer, and then south to escape the deadly cold of winter, always following the herds. In this coming-of-age story, 16-year-old Annie must face her fears of an uncertain life while finding her place as an adult in the clan. When she falls into a ravine, breaking her leg, the clan laws demand that they leave her behind. But Annie vows to return to her people and the man she loves. Things go from bad to worse when she fails to cross the Great Divide and finds herself trapped in the northern lands with no escape from the lethal coming winter. In her desperate struggle to survive, she uncovers hints about her people's past, which make her question everything she believes to be true, even her faith in the gods themselves. Racing the Suns is the first installment of a young adult science fiction series that delves into survival and the human spirit, as well as deals with deep personal crisis when the protagonist's view of the world and her faith is profoundly tested. I received my master's in English in 2006, but have been writing as a hobby for over 2 decades. Through writing, I explore universal truths and the inner personal conflict born from fear. Well done.
One of my favorite parts of this pitch is at the very beginning, heading north to avoid the scorching heat of summer, and then south to escape the deadly cold of winter. And these poles, they gave me an immediate image. They were world building in a wonderful way. And they also remind me of something that David tortures me with all the time, which is Game of Thrones.
Torture is actually an appropriate word in the Game of Thrones. I take it back.
I'm not myself a big fantasy or sci-fi reader. And David, what's the phrase from Game of Thrones about winter?
Winter's coming, baby.
Winter's coming.
Yes.
So
all men must die.
There were a little bit of hints of that, which is not a bad thing at all. But this sort of race against winter, it gave a time clock, which is always a wonderful thing to have, you know, the time beating as we go through a story. And I really got that. The things that I found more difficult about the pitch were when it becomes generic. And for me especially, because I'm not a fantasy or sci-fi reader, what happens to me is that all fantasy and sci-fi pitches start to sound the same. So if someone doesn't do very careful writing to differentiate themselves from what's out there, it falls into that just large blob of copy. And I'll give you an example of when you say, Annie must face her fears. What fears? Fears are just so generic.
Things go from bad to worse.
Things go from bad to worse. Exactly. In her desperate struggle to survive. These could be sentences out of not just hundreds of books, thousands.
Not just thousands, millions.
And I want the specificity that you have at the beginning, which is this development of this world of this very hot to very cold. You know, what are the fears in this particular place? What does going from bad to worse mean? Does it mean your fingers fall off? Does it, you know, give us a sense of that? And I think that this would pull together in a much more profound way.
Yeah, what there was of the world building, I enjoyed, but I thought there could have been more. This is chiefly an agrarian culture. Are there crazy predators? Are there, you know, apart from the weather itself, what's trying to kill these people? Are they trying to kill each other? Is there some sort of, I didn't quite get enough sense of something's going wrong within the tribe. I needed more details to bring this to life. And again, a comparable title would be, comparable titles would be great in a book like this, because we need to know, like, what is it similar to? so that, you know, again, if I'm an agent or a reader or publisher, I can say, oh, it's like this and like that, but it's different in this way and that way.
Okay. Next, Parties for a Purpose, Hope Ridings Miller and the Golden Age of Washington Society by Joseph Dalton. There was a time in Washington when our leaders acted with dignity and mutual respect. Wow, that's exciting to hear. As a result, things got done. Formal dinners and other high society events had something to do with that. Politicians found it harder to attack each other by day when they were breaking bread together by night. Reporting on the serious business of Washington parties through 5 administrations from FDR's New Deal to LBJ's Great Society was the journalist and author Hope Ridings Miller. She arrived in DC at age 28, a small town girl with big ambitions. 5 years later, she became society editor of the Washington Post. Miller was welcomed as a guest at countless state dinners, embassy receptions, and private affairs, gatherings where teacup talk could make or destroy careers. Her columns were a must-read for Washingtonians who wanted to know what was really going on. In the biography, Parties for a Purpose, Hope Ridings Miller and the Golden Age of Washington Society, readers are escorted into the Capitol's regal mansions and elegant salons. Included are personal observations on the First Ladies, unpublished letters from the famed hostesses Evelyn Walsh McLean, Sissy Patterson, and Pearl Amesta, and intimate conversations between Miller and her fellow Texan and great patron, Speaker Sam Rayburn. Author Joseph Dalton is an award-winning journalist, also Miller's younger cousin. Before her death, Helen Thomas contributed the foreword. Utilizing both charm and discretion, Hope Ridings Miller reigned over Washington society. Parties for a Purpose tells how she did it.
Again, it seems very relevant to what's going on right now at 7:39 on what day is today?
I don't even know.
We don't even know what day. That's so sad. Isn't it? I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know. It doesn't matter. A lot of great material here. It covers generations, spans lots of really famous people in it. It's got so much going for it. What I didn't quite get from this was a sense of what is actually going to be in the book. I didn't get a sense of the kind of conversations that were being had, how Hope Ridings Miller, her personal story, what was she going through? To me, it goes along the surface, and we don't see underneath what's going to propel this story, how we're going to get insights. Like, I just wanted, it feels like this should start with FDR leaned across the table to Churchill and said, "Not on my watch, you don't, sir," or some little nugget that shows us what we're going to get here. Famous people dishing dirt on other people or changing history, something like that. That to me is what's missing. It has all the stuff that we need for, to make a great book.
Including the foreword by Helen Thomas, which is awesome.
It's got all kinds of great stuff in it, but I just don't get enough of the specificity of what I'm going to find when I purchase this book.
Yeah, and I think it leads to the question. I love this, by the way.
I do too. I don't want to seem like I didn't.
I'm so intrigued, and I think the fact that you're her cousin, that you're a journalist, all of that is great. Like, all the ingredients seem to be here, but I'm not sure what kind of cake it actually is. Is it truly a biography, or is it a portrait of a time through the eyes of this young to not so young woman? And the biography thing, I think, probably actually has a more limited audience because people don't know who she is today, or at least people outside Washington. I'm not aware of her name. So I think giving a sense of this time and place that is so different than the time and place we're in right now might be something that's more marketable for you than a straight-on biography. So that's something I would consider. And I would also consider, and this is true for many people writing nonfiction, but sometimes for people writing fiction as well, I would love to see you write an editorial for the Washington Post
Yeah.
or a story.
Yep.
Get the word out, see what kind of response you get. That's really going to help you sell a book like this.
Yeah, you could easily juxtapose what's going on in Hollywood now with this. I also feel like, honestly, like this is a sort of part that actresses like, you know, this could be Emma Stone's next Oscar right here.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just got movie written all of it. Such a wonderful role for somebody. Okay. Ledger Domain and the Awesome Umbrella. I like that. I've never had an umbrella that was awesome. By Michael Lunsford. Ledger is worried. If his tinkering dad doesn't stop wasting money on eccentric brainstorms and flaky inventions, they could lose the family bookstore, life savings, and house. To make matters worse, Dad's workshop just exploded, and this was no accident. Somebody blew it up on purpose. Granddad arrives to take Ledger and his kid sister Savvy to Camp Eureka, the quintessential inventor's camp for nerdy kids, until Dad can figure out who dynamited his workshop. But on the way, Granddad goes missing, and now Ledger and Savvy are on their own to reach Camp Eureka and figure out who's messing with their family before they strike again. When they arrive, dripping wet but alive, the perplexing camp director won't let them join the search for Granddad. That is, unless they prove themselves by winning the weird, wacky water war and pretty nerdy baby buggy bumper. Ledger can't understand what's up with the camp director, but one thing he knows for sure, an inventive mind could really come in handy right now. Ledger Domain and the Awesome Umbrella is a 57,000-word upper middle grade adventure with sci-fi elements and serious potential. By the way, I know a little something about inventions, living and inventing in Silicon Valley with 27 patents to my name. I'm also a member of SCBWI and South Bay Writers Club, graduate of U of MD with a BA in English Lit, and author of 14 tech books published by Bantam, Simon & Schuster, and other top publishers. Very well done, sir. Very well done.
I am really intrigued by this pitch. Yeah. I'm intrigued by it for many, many reasons. I'm going to start at the end and work backwards. The fact that you have 27 patents to your name is such a great hook.
That's so cool.
When you think about the publicity and marketing of the book. So I love that. I feel like you're a person who knows the marketplace and has done your research. You're a member of SCBWI, a member of South Bay Writers Club. You've had books published.
14 books published.
All of these things give me a lot of confidence that you can pull off certainly the science in the book, but also constructing a book, period. I love a lot of the details in the pitch and the fun writing. I love the last sentence of the pitch. An inventive mind could really come in handy right now. I think it's terrific. The thing that I don't quite get is who our main character is. I see his predicament and the stakes, and I get that he's smart, but I don't quite see him. Yeah. And I think just a few descriptors could help him come alive for us. The other thing that I worry about a little bit is, I don't know how old you are, but there's something about the book that doesn't feel young to me. Yeah. Maybe it's using the word granddad. I don't know. But there's something that feels like it's an older person. Yeah, and when I say that, I just mean post 40 writing the book. Right. So I don't know if you've had younger readers of your book, but that might be something to do. Yeah,
the voice, we hear this over and over, the voice of a book has so much to do with whether a publisher publishes it. This is the reason books get turned down so much, the voice. And the voice, I agree, doesn't quite feel middle grade to me, and we read a lot of middle grade books with our daughter. I also agree, I haven't fallen in love with Ledger, and for any book that has a plot and characters, we have to fall in love with this character. I like the character, but I have not quite fallen in love with the character. What does the character desperately want that they don't have? Does the character do something selfless that's just for somebody else? Those are things that we can, and again, as Arielle said, a little tiny physical descriptor so we get the character in the eye of our mind. And again, I didn't see any comparable titles. I don't think we've had a one yet. in these 5 or 6
That's true.
pictures.
Yeah.
But I really liked the pitch a lot. I did.
All right. Incriminated by Gregory Kaplan. Bolstered by the notion, quote, confession is good for the soul, end quote, I unburden my conscience in a charismatic and candid memoir about the real justice system titled Incriminated. A 65,300-word draft is written. I grew up in middle-class suburbs during the mid-1970s through early 1980s. My conception of justice consisted of elementary yet misguided premises. 1, prosecutor equals good guy. 2, defense attorney equals bad guy. Despite tangential concerns about systematic shortcomings, I believe justice universally prevailed. I became a prosecutor and energetically delivered quote-unquote justice. My confidence about earlier suppositions gradually faltered. I was then immersed in a shadowy world of politics and bureaucratic infirmities. I experienced a metamorphosis and ventured across the proverbial boundary of good and evil, from high and mighty prosecutor to rabble-rousing defense attorney. I partook in courthouse capers and unsanctioned governmental escapades. Luckily, I preserved copious notes. This quote evidence reveals substantiation for my tumultuous conversion and subsequent reintegration. Incriminated, quote unquote, serves up a candid and humorous rendering of justice with conviction in a spirit akin to workplace memoirs such as The Job and 1,000 Naked Strangers. Incriminated welcomes readers to examine quandaries of justice professionals, which are overcome through indispensable moments of humor. I worked 9 years as a prosecutor and 10 plus years in private practice. I manage a diverse marketing and social media platform, publish a criminal law magazine, and provide guest analysis for KNBC and KABC, EW, and LA Daily News. Thank you for your consideration of Incriminated.
So this pitch has so much going for it. It delves down into a world that so many people are so interested in. I mean, you see books, you see movies, you see television shows about this very world.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched the OJ TV series, and you know, of course, it was captivating. And you have a fantastic platform. Like, you just seem like you are really a professional. You're going to be able to help sell a lot of copies of this book when it comes out. That's what it feels like. Now, how do I make this book, and a couple of comparable titles? That's great. So how do I make this pitch better? I feel like I don't really get a sense of exactly what's the particulars of what are going to be in this book. I get a sense of good and evil. I get a sense of there's a metamorphosis from high and mighty to, this is one of my favorite phrases, high and mighty prosecutor to rabble-rousing defense attorney. That language is really nice. But I don't understand, I don't get any of the particular incidents that are in this book. And also, it says, I would really take out the bit about it's charismatic. Calling yourself charismatic or your own book charismatic it's a very dodgy thing to do. And it also says that this book is humorous. Well, I didn't find anything even remotely funny in this. You can't just tell me you're humorous. You know, you have to make me laugh. This is for everybody. You can't tell me the book is sad. You got to make me cry. You can't tell me it's thrilling. You have to make my heart pound. So rather than telling me how funny parts of this is, you have to show me the goods. You have to have the proof of the pudding here in the book. So again, the specificity of what an example of an incident in this book that I can say, oh, this is what the book is on a very particular level is missing for me from this.
I love the premise of this book, and I love the idea of going from one side to another. Yeah. I think anyone who has a conviction of something, who then through experience goes to the other side, is something that people are always interested in. So I love that. And I also think you know, we're in a time where we're seeing lots of evidence that the criminal justice system isn't so just.
Yeah.
We just watched a documentary called The 13th,
Yeah.
which is all about this and incarceration, et cetera. So I think it's very, very timely. I agree with David that we're not quite sure what the book is going to be exactly. You say you took copious notes, but I don't know if this is all stories from you. Is it more of a nonfiction treatise on the justice system? That's not exactly clear, although you do have workplace memoir, so I'm assuming it's going to have a memoir feel, but the pitch itself is not a memoir pitch.
No.
So that's where the confusion sets in. The other issue that I have is with the writing itself. The use of quote unquote is a crutch that I would get rid of altogether. You can use it once for justice. I think it makes sense there, but I think the other place is not necessary. And in general, I found it a little stiff, the word choices. And I'll give you an example. I partook. Partook is such a hard word to read and say. People don't use it in conversation. So let me see. Okay, my confidence about earlier suppositions gradually faltered. These kinds of words.
Substantiation.
I feel like you're using big words when they're unnecessary. What I would suggest doing that I think would be helpful, first of all, read your work out loud. That's for every single person listening. But more importantly, I would talk first before you write. If you're on TV all the time, you're obviously a good talker. So let's hear what you actually say rather than what you're writing.
Feels a bit bellicose to me. Thank you.
Very funny.
Okay.
All righty. Or you're next. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm next.
Yes,
right?
you're next.
Faces by K.J. Milton. In the aftermath of a car crash that claims the lives of his wife and child, world-renowned actor and musician Jonah Wilder spirals into the hell of heroin addiction. To avoid publicity during rehab, Jonah slips into his most ambitious role to date, becoming John Walker, a bearded, long-haired, reclusive auto mechanic. Under the guise of Walker, Jonah enters an inpatient methadone program in rural Minnesota sobriety house, Minnesota sobriety house. Andy Sawyer has left her abusive husband behind, and her first priority now is to provide a stable home environment for Charlie, a musically gifted, special needs daughter. But stability seems elusive in Pine Valley, Minnesota. As Shumway Steel, the town's largest industry, faces closure. Then an unexpected friendship blossoms with John, the new arrival at the men's sobriety house next door. As his walls crumble and love opens the door to dreams of a new life, John Walker envisions a future for the three of them as a family, as long as his tragic past as Jonah Wilder stays hidden. When the feeling that she's met John before drives Andy to put her artistic skills to work, she realizes that John may not be the man she thought he was. Worse, Andy's dangerously obsessed ex-husband has returned, and Peter Sawyer will stop at nothing to unmask the imposter in Andy's life. Jonah must reconcile his past and accept the better man he's become, or he will lose everything he's come to cherish: Andy, Charlie, and his second chance at life.
What I really enjoy about this pitch is the very high stakes.
Yeah.
And the suspense, because we already have a setup of a guy with a fake identity who at any time can be revealed.
Right.
And, you know, that soap operas do that all the time for good reason, because people keep watching to find out when's he going to be discovered.
Shakespeare.
I mean,
it was filled with,
of course,
you know,
Midsummer's
mistaken
Night's Dream.
identities,
Yeah.
and you're going to get caught, and you're going to, pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that, and I also I think these characters are well drawn in this very, very small pitch.
Yeah.
And I think we have elements here of the dangerous ex-husband coming in. There's lots of things that can go wrong, and yet we're rooting for these characters to succeed in 250 words or less. So I love that. What I really would have loved is some comp titles,
Yeah.
because I don't know where on the shelf of women's fiction this belongs. How literary, how romancy is this? Somewhere in between. You know, on the one hand, it sort of reminds me of a wonderful writer named Caroline Levitt.
I was going to say that.
But
yeah.
I don't know if it's quite that literary. It might not be quite that literary. So we really need those comp titles here to understand where this fits. Otherwise, I was really impressed by the pitch and excited by it.
Yeah, I was too. I did just one phrase, the daughter, her musically gifted special needs daughter. That phrase, and it's like 5 words, and yet I sort of got a picture of this girl, which I thought was great. And again, I mean, this is, you know, a role, the main character here is a role that any actor would absolutely love to play, because you get to be somebody else who's pretending to be somebody else, and they're really a movie star, but they're the heroin addict. And I mean, it's got all this stuff. You know what's kind of missing is the heroin addiction sort of fades into the background here, and it feels like it's such an important part of the beginning of the story. You know, addicts always relapse at some point. So I thought that could be sort of woven into the end of it. But yeah, I thought it had, I agreed, enormous tension, and it's just got book and movie written all over it.
All right. The Anger Album by Leanne Daniel. 17-year-old songwriter Andy Lund has spent a good deal of her life engaging in FaceTime with a variety of anger management therapists. So when it seems Andy has met her match with Dr. Jay Dixon, she makes it a personal challenge to contest everything he says or does. That is, until she's forced to join sides with the shrink or risk her entire career falling through. Andy's band has a distribution deal lined up with Strange Angels Entertainment in Los Angeles. If they can write and record an entire album in a month's time, if they can, sorry, let me read that again. Andy's band has a distribution deal lined up with Strange Angels Entertainment in Los Angeles if they can write and record an entire album in a month's time. To get her father to agree on letting her pursue this opportunity before she's 18, Andy must first strike a deal with her therapist, stating that she will retire her iron fists and produce an effective anger journal so she might win her freedom from the shackles of therapy. But when the root source of all her anger begins to unveil itself in the form of an unexpected classmate, Andy must try and cope with these new truths without losing her temper, her career, or most importantly, herself. The Anger Album is a 96,000-word literary young adult novel told alongside Andy's lyrics from each song written throughout the story. It will perhaps appeal to readers of Jesse Andrews and Tara Kelly, and anyone who appreciates a taste for music and a bit of humor as well.
This is so good. I really like this pitch so much. It has a kind of...
We forgot to clap. Sorry, if we forgot to clap for anyone, it's just because we are getting into it.
It's kind of has a Nick Hornby-ish feel to it. And it reminds me, I don't know, there's been so many great sort of relationships between therapists and patients. I was thinking of the John Cusack movie, Grosse Point Blank, with Alan Arkin as the therapist. But there's been, you know, dozens, hundreds of these stories. But this is a new, so again, it's familiar and yet it's unique. It's got something that we can sort of say, yes, I've seen something like this before, but it's a new iteration of the Mousetrap. And I love the lyrics that are going to accompany the thing. I just thought it was a really fine pitch that showed, it's got a clock ticking. They have a month to record the album. You can just see, you know, how much, lunacy is going to go on there. What I'd like, okay, what's missing from this pitch? I am a person who's been to some anger management therapists in my life. I would just like to see one. I think like it should start with her engaged in some angry behavior, possibly with her therapist. You know, open quote. Get the hell away from me, blah, blah, bling, blang. She throws the thing across the floor, barely meets his head, and it crashes. And something that shows me you're going to be able to write a really good angry girl scene. That to me is what's missing from it, the specificity of that. But apart from that, I thought it was really a wonderful pitch.
I want to talk about title for a second. This book has such an awesome title.
Titles can sell books.
They really can, and I just love it. I can see the jacket, everything. The marketing becomes easier. That I was almost sold at the title. And then I was really impressed by the premise, and then, as David said, the ticking clock. It sets up the novel perfectly. You laid it out beautifully. The one thing that I felt was missing from the pitch is I would like a reason to root for her, and the reason to root for her is whatever is at the root of her anger management problem. You got to give us some hint as to what that is, because then we feel for her, because she's going to be a hard character to like in a certain way. So you got to give us the reason to like her.
And it's a reason for people to turn the book down, unlikable main character, even though we've seen over and over again from Tony Soprano on and on that, you know, if a character can be unlikable and be in the center of a story, but there has to be, as Arielle said, I agree, something that makes us sympathize with her inherently.
All right.
Okay. Noon Skate by Carol Makala. Monica Jones stared with horror at the smoldering ruins of the apartment building that had been her home. She and her teen daughter had lost everything in the blaze and must now rebuild their lives. Monica's parents had disowned her after she became pregnant in high school, and she had struggled to provide for her daughter for years. Now a 37-year-old paralegal in Michigan, Monica races to the ice rink every day during her lunch hour for exercise lessons and camaraderie. She dreams of a gold medal in ice dance, akin to a black belt in martial arts, an accomplishment that would represent years of hard work and considerable investment in coaching, ice time, and expensive skates. When Monica's friendship with skating partner Brad Peltonen takes a romantic turn, Monica wonders if she and Brad have enough in common off the ice to make the relationship work. Will the apartment fire and its aftermath draw them closer to hasten the end of their romance? When Brad suffers a medical emergency, Monica prays that he will survive to be her partner on and off the ice. She continues to work on the last dance she needs to complete her gold medal. Will she pass the test and become a gold medalist? Monica was introduced in my first novel, On Your Feet, Indie Excellence Award 2009, about ballroom dancing. As a gold medalist in ice dance, I have drawn on my 20 years of skating experience in writing Noon Skate.
We love novels that capture a world. That someone has expertise in that we don't know anything about.
And we're not alone there. People love these kinds of books.
Exactly. And the world of skating, ice skating in particular, has a huge audience. You know, if in the Winter Olympics, that's prime time for a reason. So there's a lot of people that would enjoy getting into that world. And you obviously have that experience. Exactly. So there's many things to like about the pitch in terms of setting up the relationship and the fact that she was was a teenage mom and now has a teenage daughter. But to me, a book like this is more about the romance. And I'm not really getting the heat on the ice.
Oh, ooh, nice.
And while the apartment fire is obviously an important part of this, the romance and will she get the gold medal, to me, are the heart of what the pitch should be about. And so the apartment fire sort of takes you off in a different direction. I might start on the ice. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I do agree. Also, I mean, it seems that, you know, there's a daughter is mentioned in here, but nothing really happens with the daughter, does it? I mean, and it also seems sort of pushing the boundaries that a 37-year-old would be trying to get a gold medal in ice skating. I mean, you look at the ice skaters when someone's 25.
But what about
30.
Torval and Dean? It's ice dance, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess
Weren't
that makes
they
sense.
older?
Yeah, they were older. That's true. It just struck me as being a little unrealistic, but perhaps I'm wrong with that. But the daughter did seem to disappear from this pitch. So you'd have to make more of her or take her out.
I would lose her.
And I would lose her.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree that it would be great to start on the ice with them, her looking in the eyes of Brad, and you know, something is flaming there, so to speak. Yes, and I'm not invested enough in this relationship because it seems to be at the center of this whole thing. And I agree, it should start with that rather than the fire.
Yep. All right. Here we go. Wind Dancer by Erin Roll. A race and an air show for up-and-coming young aerialists and airship builders. It was just the sort of news that 16-year-old aspiring pilot Emily Halloran has been waiting all her life for. Growing up in early 20th century Belfast, a city that prides itself on building ships of the air as well as ships of the sea, Emily longs to join the ranks of the world's greatest pilots and airship designers. She has already designed and built her first aircraft, a small two-seater called Wind Dancer. When Emily sees the notice in the newspaper about the competition in England, she knows that she has to enter. It would mean a chance to make a name for herself. Besides, with Belfast increasingly threatened by civil unrest, lost jobs, and war in Europe, Emily's family needs something to hope for. So Emily and her sister and co-pilot, Katie, take Wind Dancer and join the other boys and girls flying their way to a chance at glory. As they make their way through the semifinals, Emily and Katie see firsthand that the competition is fierce and that the odds are decidedly against them. What good can a homemade, built from spare parts airship like Wind Dancer be against the professionally built airships that some of the other contestants are flying? It also becomes clear that someone is playing a dangerous game with the contestants' lives. Will Emily, Katie, and Wind Dancer triumph? Set in an alternate history, Ireland and England, Wind Dancer is a high-flying, thrilling steampunk adventure.
Yeah, nicely done. Oh, this is a very unusual subject matter for a book. We've heard 10,000 pitches. I've never heard this book pitched yet. And again, I like that it takes us into this world, which is partly invented and partly real. I really like that kind of book, and many readers do. You've got the underdog, the David and Goliath theme here, which I think is great. I guess, you know, what do I need to make this pitch come alive? I don't get really a sense of flying, how cool that is and how amazing it is for our hero. Like, why is she so devoted to this? Again, if it was me, I might start this with her up in the air, taking the reader, showing an agent or an editor or you know, somebody who's going to read this book that you have the chops to write a scene with us up in the air that communicates the thrill that this girl gets from doing this activity, which is so much at the center of your story.
Can I add something
yes,
to
you
that?
may.
Because I think there's something else that will do by starting up in the air. A steampunk novel is largely about creating a world that is like a world, but not quite. And I think by going up in the air and observing what is seen, so instead of, you know, telling us about all these things that are going on in the world in Ireland, if you could show it to us instead.
From a bird's eye view.
From a bird's eye view, so cool. I think that would be really cool. I love the setting. Yeah. I think the characters seem interesting. But I think we need that kind of world building in here rather than the telling of us. And then I think you've got a really strong pitch.
Comp titles.
Comp titles. All right. Or is it me?
I think it's you.
Really? Okay. No, it's
me.
You.
Sorry, it's me.
You.
The Sky Shatters by Jennifer Mannering. I am seeking representation for The Sky Shatters, an LGBT young adult romance novel completed at 77,000 words. Award-winning author Tim O'Brien called my novel suspenseful and vividly written. Nice. And internationally best-selling author Amy Stewart loved, quote, Love the diversity of characters and the quick-witted words and dialogue, unquote. My novel will appeal to the fans of Adam Silvera's More Happy Than Not and Tommy Wallach's We All Looked Up. When the rain starts, it's simply an annoyance, but then it doesn't stop. 17-year-old sci-fi geek Simon Myers doesn't know if the rumors of a global flood are true, but he does know that he's not gay. He just happens to spend a lot of time studying the muscles of his childhood friend, star quarterback Jay Griffin. Unfortunately, things have been weird with his friend ever since Simon stumbled upon Jay's heartbreaking secret. Now Simon is forced to grapple with his new feelings for Jay and watch from the sidelines as Jay starts dating the sharp-tongued beauty Trish O'Brien. The daughter of a heroin addict, Trish has never had an easy life. With her mother practically comatose and her father never home, Trish is the sole caregiver to her baby sister and often must resort to stealing to keep them fed. But Trish has a plan. She shimmied her way into Jay's life in her tightest jeans and skimpiest top. And come hell or high water, she's going to use him and his rich kid privilege to escape her chaotic home life and circling social worker. As tensions between Trish, Simon, and Jay escalate, so does the persistent ferocity of the rain. Complaints and jokes about the weather begin to morph into whispers of fear and acts of violence. Schools are closed, shops are broken into, the electricity goes out, the water gets higher. And a kiss changes everything. I am an event coordinator at the Lavin Agency in Toronto, where I spend my days surrounded by books and interesting people. On rainy days, you can find me reading under a blanket, drinking copious amounts of Earl Grey tea. My blanket fort is also located in Toronto.
So you've done a really smart thing with this pitch by starting with these blurbs.
Yes.
And for anyone out there, if you have connections to well-known writers or people, having those blurbs start people off thinking, wow, this is going to be good.
It legitimizes you. Everybody, to say, I can say she's great, but if I say I'm great, then it doesn't work as well.
So well done, and great that you got those quotes. That's going to be extremely helpful to you. I as you probably saw when I laughed out loud, I love the humor of I'm not gay.
I just love looking at boys' muscles.
Yeah, that was really terrific, and that was the high point of the pitch for me because it had voice and humor, and we got a sense of this character and everything. I also like the description of Trish with her, her tightest jeans and skimpiest top. Yeah. Again, gave me a real image of what's going on. There's something in the pitch. Besides that, we get a love triangle, but I'm not getting what makes this book different from so many other books. And I think that if you were able to weave more of that sort of humor and that the resistance of our protagonist into the rest of the pitch, it would help to make this story seem special.
Yeah, I agree. I do like the sort of apocalyptic Noah's Ark raining 40 days and 40 nights idea. That's kind of cool. It's sort of an outside force. We always might want to make things harder for our main characters. But one thing that I sort of lose thread of is when our main character, or what seems like our main character, we lose track of the crush that Simon has on Jay. It's sort of like,
I think that was part of my issue too.
That seemed like it was going to be the center of the story because you open up with it, but we don't really hear much about it afterwards. It's, he's pining for her, for him. He's pining for him, and that is what makes the book different. He's pining for him, as opposed to he's pining for her.
Right. Although even that is has been done. So yes.
I would also worry a little bit about calling it a romance novel unless it's strictly in the romance category.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, The Surrogate by Lynn Katz. On the verge of returning from another disappointing summer vacation visiting dead authors' homes, Jen Cooper, an English teacher from Connecticut, meets her doppelganger in a Key West bar and agrees to swap lives for 1 month. Jen believes she has nothing to lose. She could not be more wrong. As she struggles to make sense of her new situation while hiding her actual identity, she discovers her double's teenage son, Martin, has isolated himself behind his locked bedroom door. With each passing day, Jen uncovers clues that shed light on Martin's disturbing behavior and the twisted family dynamics. Jen confronts the school system that has failed Martin. She seeks guidance from the new school psychologist with whom she has an affair. As his homeschool tutor, Jen plans American literature assignments designed to lure him out of his isolation. Martin's obsession with violent video games and guns, his unsuppressed rage, his verbal threats, and missing firearms from the family's arsenal above the garage lead Jen to suspect that Martin may be plotting a mass shooting. With every plot twist, Jen faces more obstacles and fewer options. She must reimagine her life's purpose and use her teaching skills to prevent another American tragedy. Convinced that Martin's mother was psychologically unable to prevent her son's downward spiral, Jen Cooper believes she is the surrogate who has the skills to help him, and if necessary, she has the will to stop him.
Wow, okay. Clapping. This seems, again, so relevant to what's going on in today's world with a gun culture run amok and alienated kids who are, tremendously, brutally, violently angry. And it was surprising to me. I didn't see when the story started that it was going to end up where it did. Again, I would love some comparable titles. We're going to sound like a broken record here. And when the pitch is specific, again, it captivates me. When it's not, then it leaves me a little cold. You say early on, uncovers clues that shed light on Martin's disturbing behavior. I don't know what that means. Twisted family dynamics. You need to show us a little bit of that, of how, what behavior is it that's disturbing? So again, when it's specific, it works like gangbusters for me. I really like the story. And it, I am rooting for her to succeed at stopping this kid from doing his horrible deed, if that's what he is indeed doing. Again, make it more specific, less general, some comparable titles.
So the thing that I'm confused about is in terms of swapping lives.
Yes.
That I don't get how she's able to hide her identity. So I had confusion about that, which sort of tripped me up. But I think the escalation here is excellent.
Yeah,
we can see the plot develop before our eyes.
The stakes are very high.
So I think that's great, but I think it's important to clarify that at the beginning, because otherwise, if people start with confusion, it's never a good thing.
The Grave Digger's Assistant by Janelle Fila. Completed 70,000 words, The Grave Digger's Assistant is YA magical realism novel with an unreliable narrator in the vein of We Were Liars. It's Halloween, and the blood moon calls Reese's ancestors to a family graveyard. Reese doesn't know anything about Gravedigger, the spirit in charge of digging graves for her dead relatives, and she doesn't care. After a stint in rehab for drunk driving, she's finally free to go back to senior year. Except now, everything's changed. Her parents fight about who forgot to defrost the chicken. Her best friend finds a replacement and demotes Reese to tag along. Her boyfriend scurries down the hall without a word, expecting Reese to give him space until he's ready to talk. She doesn't even get the courtesy of a breakup text. Screw that. When Reese stumbles upon the graveyard, she befriends Gravedigger and replaces her fraying real-world relationships. She bonds with ghosts like Frances, a 1900s suffragist, and Frances's mother, who threw herself into a creek after her husband left her to prospect gold and never came home. Reese promises to find her missing great-great-great-grandfather and return his ghost to the graveyard before the end of the blood moon cycle, a journey that will connect her worlds in ways she cannot imagine. My stories and poems have appeared in Yarn, Word Hotel, golfwell.net, and Proud to Be, the Proud to Be anthology. In May, I will earn my MFA in writing for children and YA from Spalding University.
So what I love about this pitch is you don't tell us, in my humorous novel, you made us laugh. You really did. I just loved
the breakup text.
The breakup text. That is just, it's hilarious. It's so good. And all that kind of detail really makes this come alive in a wonderful way. I can tell you're a writer, all that good stuff. What I'm having trouble with is how you've categorized the novel. You call it magic realist, which typically refers to very literary novels, not typically YA. So, you know, I'm thinking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez and, you know, Toni Morrison, etc. So this seems funny, teenagery, and, you know, it doesn't fit.
Ghosts.
It's got
And a
ghosts,
graveyard and grave diggers.
Yeah, but that could just be fantasy.
Absolutely. Seems more fantasy than magic realism.
Exactly. So, so I think if you can hit that mark right to let people know, if people know that you understand your category, then they see you as a professional. You are a professional by your writing, but I want to see everything match up perfectly so that people take you as seriously as possible.
And it says that there's an unreliable narrator, and yet I don't quite see that manifest in the pitch in any way.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that was a little off-putting to me as I shook a.
I'd rather you not even talk about the narrator. We don't need to know that.
Right. But I thought it was really a good pitch, really professionally done, really well put together.
Okay, The Whiskey Code by Mally Becker. Set during the darkest days of the American Revolution, The Whiskey Code tells the story of General Washington's most reluctant spy, a fiercely independent young woman who races time and turncoats to uncover then thwart a plot that threatens Washington's life. Recently widowed Rebecca Parcell is too busy struggling to maintain her Morristown farm to give a fig about the revolution, while the village gossips whisper that she betrayed her cheating late husband by turning him over to the British. George Washington has proof that he was in fact a loyalist spy. Washington swears he'll help Becca preserve her farm if she can uncover her late husband's secrets. Her search for the truth pairs her with an escaped British prisoner, Daniel Alloway, the last person to see her husband alive, as they embark on an espionage mission through British-occupied New York City. Moving from glittering balls to an underworld of brothels and prisons, Becca and Daniel uncover a plot that threatens the general's life and the new country's future. Will they move quickly enough to prevent Washington's death? Will Becca learn who betrayed her husband? And as she grows more confident in her own independence, will she continue to cling to the farm and her past?
Nicely done.
Woohoo!
Yeah, any book that has, or story that has one of the founding fathers in it has a much greater chance of succeeding Hamilton than a book that doesn't. I don't know. These are our gods, our heroes, these founding fathers. So I just thought the pitch was really good. It had so much going for it. You know, again, it takes us into this world that is very familiar, and yet we don't really know. I don't really know that much about, you know, George Washington's personal life or the spy world beneath that. But it does have, I don't know if you've seen the show Americans, it does kind of have that, but set in, you know, 17 whatever. I just really liked it. I guess I could use a few more. I could use a comparable title or two, and
yeah, let me talk about comparable titles here for a second, because again, this is an issue. Like at first, I thought maybe it was a YA novel.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So it wasn't clear, but then she's older and she's going to brothels and whatever. So I think the comp titles would give us a sense of who is the audience for this book, because I'm not clear here what it is. Love phrases like she didn't give a fig. I love the idea of going to balls in New York, in British occupied New York City.
Yeah, that's cool.
All that stuff was just terrific. Yeah. But I left the pitch not knowing who your audience was, and that's the information that would be really helpful here. But I was so intrigued by it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right.
We have time for one more?
No, we have.
We're going till 8:30.
No, we have to do 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought we were cutting off at 8:30.
No.
All right, great. Okay. Meteor Showers by Crystal Chilcott. Moving every year or two is hard on teenagers under normal circumstances, but doubly so when each move means adjusting to a new culture and country. For a figure skating Olympic hopeful, getting the proper training is nearly impossible. When Santiago moves to train full-time at Olympic Training Center site, he knows his life will change drastically. No longer will he live as a global nomad with his mom and an ever-growing number of half-siblings. For the first time, he will seek companionship beyond his family. What he isn't prepared for is a tragedy that challenges everything he thinks he knows about his family, faith, sport, and his place in the world. His grief sends him on a quest to find the father he never met, search for existential meaning in his life, and a relentless pursuit of a spot on the Olympic team. As he uncovers his mother's secrets, he is aided by Athena, the world champion who lives next door, and Shaylin, his young secondary coach with a toddler and a big secret of her own. A comparable title is I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. The novel would appeal to teenagers with goals of their own, an interest in travel, or who are struggling to find their place in the world.
We have another
Ice skating.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for sports books and movies where someone's trying to achieve a
Yes.
goal, and will they make it or
And
not?
seemingly insurmountable
Exactly.
odds. Yes.
So I always think it makes for great plot.
Yeah.
So I think that's a terrific setup there. I also like the fact that he has to move to some place that he's not comfortable with.
Right.
I think that also gives a lot of setup for a character to grow. The thing for me with this pitch had to do with the writing itself, in which it felt more like a book report than gave me a sense of what the book is going to be like. I didn't get any sense of voice here, and that's what I would have liked. Yeah,
and also you sort of bury there's obviously a huge tragedy that takes place. And I know, it's a fine line between revealing and concealing, but that just left me cold. Just saying, oh, he had a tragedy. It didn't move me in any way. And a tragedy should make my heart stop and should make me go, oh my God, how could they endure that? And instead, it just went like, oh, it's another tragedy, whatever.
Yeah. So I think with a little more voice, we can get some more juice in this. And I think it's a terrific setup for a novel.
Yeah.
The Weight of Our Sky by Hannah Alcaf. By the time school ends on Tuesday, Melody Ahmed's mother has died 17 times. On the way to school, she is run over by a runaway lorry. During English, she is caught in a crossfire and hit by a stray bullet straight through the chest. At recess, she accidentally ingests some sort of dire poison. And as they peruse their geography textbook, Melody's mother is stabbed repeatedly by robbers. Melody knows she isn't to blame. It's the Djinn, scratching at her mind with his wicked clawed fingers, squeezing the air out of her lungs and pounding urgent tattoos on her heart. It's only through an intricate web of counting and tapping that she's able to tame the beast within her and keep her mother safe. That's the sacrifice the Djinn demands, and one she's happy to pay. But it's 1969, and on May 13th, the already percolating melting pot that is Kuala Lumpur boils over. As the Chinese and Malays wage war against each other, Mel and her mother find themselves separated by a city in flames. And with a 24-hour curfew in place and all lines of communication down, it will take all of the courage, grit, and Beatles songs in Melody's arsenal to overcome the violence on the streets, her own prejudices, and the Djinn's surging power to make it back to the one person she can't risk losing. Based on actual events, The Weight of Our Sky is a young adult novel complete at about 57,000 words.
So when you say, well, by the way, that's a really good pitch. I really like it. I'm assuming that the actual events are not a genie taking somebody's mind, but rather the events that take place in China, in Kuala Lumpur, which I love that it has this this backdrop. I use as a model Gone with the Wind, which besides its political problems, yes, it's a love story, but it's set against this fantastic backdrop of Atlanta burning and the Civil War and all that. And this has that in there, which I think is just great. Again, the stakes are raised enormously when 24-hour curfew, there's crazy violence in the street. And I have to say, when I first read this pitch, I was so taken by the first couple of sentences. The first sentence in particular, by the time school ends on Tuesday, Melody Ahmad's mother has died 17 times. I was like, wow, what a grabber for everybody. I mean,
I also love lines like, it's only through an intricate web of counting and tapping that she's able to tame the beast within her and keep her mother safe. It's so interesting, we want to know what that means.
Pounding urgent tattoos on her heart.
Yeah, beautiful
We've been
writing.
talking about the voice of a pitch, the voice of a book. This has such a strong and powerful poetic, beautiful voice to it, besides having a wonderful plot that's filled with terrible things that are going to happen to our main characters.
And the only other thing I would say is I didn't quite understand that her mother did die 17 times and that this is based on real events. So is this a fantasy novel, or is this, or some combination, but how does someone die 17 times and have it be
Well, I think
based?
it's the genie who's doing this.
Right.
Right.
So I
but
think
it's not quite clear.
to
Yes.
say it's based on real events and to have that is a little bit of a confusing.
It is,
so
slightly.
yeah, but terrific writing.
Yes,
there.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. The Goddess Candidate by Micah S. Cole. The day 11 signposts fell out of the sky, Devin Lamont's main concern was hiding makeup from her fundamentalist father. But when one of these fiery signs appears outside her high school, Devin becomes one of the first people to read the strange words burned into the grounds all around it. Walk through fire and to become God. A day later, a Portuguese bartender films himself touching the sign, crossing dimensions and meeting angels, and the world learns that the signs are no hoax. God is dead and his post is up for grabs. Or Satan's got a trick up his sleeve. But none of this matters to Devin. Touching the sign would mean an end to her carefully cultivated double life as popular girl and pious child. And she'd rather be kissing Corey, a semi-mysterious, nerdy guitarist. But Corey has an otherworldly secret, and he, as well as half the modern world, thinks it's worth severe burns to turn into a deity. Even worse, Devin's father sees the flame-protected sign as an opportunity to prove his father's faith. And it is this steady devotion that could burn Devin's world to the ground. At 72,000 Worlds, The Goddess Candidate is a contemporary YA LGBTQ fantasy that explores the various effects of religion and the human capacity for tolerance and love. It pairs Kira Cass's The Selection and the modern-day darkness and diversity of Lev Grossman's The Magicians. It is intended to kick off a series, and well done.
The religion piece of this is fascinating to me, and it's another getting into a world that is incredibly intriguing, but that many of us don't know. And the fact that it's LGBTQ in this world, I think, is so cool. So I really taken with the world of this novel, and also the whole idea of these signs and the walking through fire. It has a darkness to it that that we can see and feel, and makes me enter the novel in 250 words. Yeah,
it's got a real like brimstone biblical thing going on with the signs and everything. I love the comparison titles. It's just a really professional pitch. I guess I'd like to know more about the love element, about the LGBTQ element of this story, because I don't quite get enough of that, I feel like, if that's the way you're pitching the book.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay. The Second Life by Jacqueline Ricewig. Wes Hastings was just another of her British actor make-believe boyfriends. She never expected she'd actually meet him, on the tube of all places. She never expected their train to explode moments later. Her dream trip to London morphs into a nightmare. She's injured, stranded underground in the smoking ruins of the car, alone except for one familiar stranger. Turns out it's easier to see your celebrity crush as a real person when he's bleeding to death. Bombings are great for perspective. He's not Wes Hastings, the actor, anymore. He's the brave man showing her how to hold it together. She has basic first aid training. He has a dark sense of humor. They have each other, but his time is running out. Help finally arrives in the form of a medic who gives her a terrible choice. She can watch Wes die or risk her life on a chance to save him. Even if they both survive, moving on without him may prove a more difficult challenge. They'll be separated by an ocean, by his fame, by her integrity, and he never even got her name. Second Life is a 70,000-word contemporary romance. I earned my BA in English with a concentration in writing, and I'm lucky to stay home with my 2 kids. Second Life is my debut novel, but I'm an experienced pro at crushes on British actors. That's very charming.
It's very charming. I find the whole pitch to be very charming.
Me too.
And again, you know, it's got stakes that are so high. It kind of reminds me of one of those early, like Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant movies.
Yeah.
You know, where she's the ordinary girl and he's the movie star. That Notting Place,
Notting Hill.
Was that film? So again, it's familiar, but you've got a whole new take on it that's quite interesting. So I feel like, you know, it's got the explosion in it. It's got so much going for it that I think is really great. And it comes down to this, again, our friend Caroline Levitt, who's a great writer, said, you always want to have this Sophie's Choice moment where either choice is going to be absolutely horrible. And you have this at the end of the book, and you set it up very nicely.
The only question for me is how far does this take us in the book? Is this just the beginning of the novel, and then we have a character off on her own, or is most of the novel them stuck in the tube together? That would be helpful to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Assisted Lovin' by Lorinda McKinnon. Janice, an aging female journalist, lands in an assisted living facility, bitterly determined to remain aloof and detached, only to discover that intrigue and romance aren't just for the young. She is swept up in the drama of a corrupt facility administrator, the hilarious attempts at friendship by the oversexed ladies across the hall, and in the attention of the dignified gentleman in the unit next door. When a newspaper prints an expose of romantic activities in the retirement community, it attracts the attention of the townspeople and alarms the residents' families, who are worried by the possibility that it could be their loved ones who are involved in this risque scandal. The residents find the notoriety thrilling and go to great lengths to spy on one another and to be featured in the next newspaper article. Janice teams up with the newspaper reporter and her new friends to reveal a plot to force the facility to close and discover she's found a new, if slightly dysfunctional, family. Woo!
It's really
I read
a fun pitch.
2 in a row, by the way, so you can read the next
my God.
two. Yeah.
That is really a fun pitch, I must say. It reminds me a little bit
Assisted Lovin'.
What was it called? The television show in the hospital, Getting On.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it, but you should watch that. I mean, that's more about the caregivers, but there's a whole thing with horny old people that's really, really funny and dark and scathing, and reminds me in the best sense of this. So I guess we don't have comparable titles. And someone just wrote us a question about comparable titles. They're just so important because, as we said before, it's a shorthand for communicating what your book is. And we can tell you actually in our book, there's enormous information about comparable titles and how to come about finding them, which I won't go into now. So how do I make this better?
Can I say one thing?
Yes, you may say one thing.
I love the title, but I think it would be better if it was Assisted Loving rather than Love-In, because it's assisted living. I know that's the play on the words, but it's better to have the direct play don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Than an off play. And Assisted Loving is a terrific title for this novel. Go ahead.
I kind of lose track of our main character. Does she get involved with one of these men? I get the bigger picture of what's going on around her, but you know, we got to fall in love with this main character. We have to follow her as she pursues her dreams.
That's what's missing for me too.
And tries to succeed against seemingly insurmountable odds at something. And I lose her, and that's absolutely crucial to any book becoming a success. Is us falling in love with and rooting for the main characters to succeed.
Yep.
All right, The Friend by Elizabeth Brookbank. My novel is titled The Friend, and it's about Pansy, the free-spirited daughter of an Irish revolutionary and a washerwoman, and Livy, short for Lydia, the prim and proper daughter of an English gentleman. Two young women from very different backgrounds living in 19th century England who fall in love with each other. In a world that views their love as unspeakable and unnatural, Pansy and Livy want nothing more than to be together. They are about to hide They're about to hide for a while, but behind the thin veneer of social acceptability provided by the fashion of the time for romantic friendships between women. Eventually, though, things start to go wrong. Libby's parents insist she marry the eldest son of the scheming and socially climbing Mr. John Archibald, not only to get Libby clear of Pansy, but to shore up the family's finances and its hold on their historic estate. Forced into a corner by Libby's impending nuptials and increasing suspicions about the true nature of their relationship, Pansy and Libby decide to run away together, to elope to America to start a new life. The night they set for their escape arrives, but Libby never makes it to the ship they plan to take to freedom. In the wake of her disappearance, Pansy is arrested and charged with her murder. Bum, bum, bum.
Wow, that has a very surprising and great
yes,
ending
I did
to
not
it.
see that coming.
So I think this is a great setting, really interesting plot points here, particularly the end makes me want to find out what happened. This goes back to a voice issue in terms of how to make this pitch better. My novel is titled and is about is, again, it's like a grade school book report rather than a pitch for a novel. And the best way to learn how to write pitches is to read them. So I would go to look on Amazon for historical novels
or go
and
to your
read the
independent
pitches.
bookstore.
This is just for research.
Okay.
Buy your books from your independent bookstore, but it's very easy to research Amazon and use the feature people who bought this book also bought. So I think you've got all the elements. Now it's about the writing and the voice and taking it out of book report style.
We were talking about, are we rooting for these characters to succeed? And by the end, I am rooting for them to succeed. I want them to be in love together. Okay. Last Chance, Texas by Deborah Henley. Last Chance, Texas has the highest literacy rate in the state, and it may have been due to the unusual influence Ms. Hattie, the librarian, had over the small town. When the lovely old library burns to the ground along with Miss Hattie, oh dear, her influence extends beyond the grave with the last 9 books left in a box. Each book was earmarked by a sticky note with the recipient's name. The 9 books are random, from a grimy copy of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas for the town's Playboy to Coding for Dummies for the brilliant computer analyst who consulted for Dell Industries. She indicated Marley and me to go to an irascible old coot who hates dogs, and a copy of The Art of French Cooking to a cowgirl who couldn't boil water. Persuasion, The Mayor of Castlebridge, the complete works of Shakespeare, like Water for Chocolate, and John Adams for the rest of the books, all for specific people and Miss Hattie's unfathomable reasons. An entire town starts a reading frenzy to ascribe meaning to her wishes. Meanwhile, the true reason the library is destroyed becomes all too clear when the governor's office announces plans for the east-west corridor cutting directly through Last Chance will erase the town and give anyone with large adjoining acreages millions of dollars in an eminent domain deal. Miss Hattie, with her Democratic Party influence and political clout, would have stood in the way of the corridor deal. She had to go. Now, when I first read this pitch, I thought this is a book that book lovers are going to go nuts for. Not
just book lovers, but the fact that a librarian is at the heart of this. I want to know if Deborah is a librarian. I wish she had put that in her pitch, because librarians can make a book a bestseller. And this character of Mrs. Hattie, I love her, Ms. Hattie. I love her already. And this idea of these different books for different people. It's such a fun pitch. And then it has this political piece to it as well. So I think it has so many different elements. My only question is, who's the protagonist of the book? We don't know who we're following. Are these all different people? And is it going to be hard to get a narrative going with that? So that's the one missing piece here. Otherwise, it's so terrific.
Yeah, it is. I know Miss Hattie sort of has to die, but I kind of don't want her to die.
Right.
I don't want her to be the hero of the book, like lying in the hospital bed, like hanging on for dear life as these people read this book. Because, I don't get a hero in the book, and that's crucial to any book working, I think.
Okay, we don't have a title for this. And by the way, people, we only have 2 left, so we're getting to the end here. This is by Amy Brown. Emmy Harrison has avoided her ex-fiancé, Jack Cabot, for nearly 2 years. Her twin brother Evan's wedding is about to end that streak. Evan is marrying Jack's little sister, forcing them all together for an entire week. No one had the nerve to tell Emmy that Jack is newly engaged to Emmy's arch enemy. From bad bridesmaid dresses, that's hard to say. Bad bridesmaids dresses, hyperactive sister-in-laws, a mean girl with even meaner secrets, and too much to drink, nothing seems to go right for Emmy, except when she's wearing her little gray dress. When she speedwalks into Liam Jackson's bar to escape, things get more complicated. He's gorgeous, Southern, and has no past with Emmy. He may be exactly what she needs to prove for the last time that she doesn't need or want Jack. Will Emmy's heart lead her towards the man she's never quite gotten over, or will she move on after finally seeing him for what he really is? Will that little gray dress make another appearance when Emmy least expects it? Woo!
It seems like this book should be called The Little Gray Dress.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like that it's not the little black dress.
Me too.
Because that's the cliche.
Yeah.
All right, so this falls squarely into the women's fiction category of the bookstore. We've got these wonderful, past romances, the future romance. She's running away from this thing. I'd like a little physical descriptor of our characters, especially when she walks into Liam Jackson's bar to escape. Oh, he gorgeous Southern, but gorgeous, it's just a cliche word. Tell a little story about the thing.
So I was doing consultation with someone who said in their pitch, a beautiful princess walks in the door, something to that effect. Beautiful princess conjures up no image because it doesn't mean anything. So I said, what was this princess like? Give me some adjectives. And one of the adjectives this person said was sparrow-boned. A sparrow-boned princess.
Can't you just see that in your mind's eye? That's what I need for, in fact, this whole pitch needs to, the language, again, needs to be elevated a little bit to show us that you can create a Liam Jackson who a woman can, just from your pitch, can go, oh my God. Oh, I wish I'd been walking into the bar and seeing Liam Jackson, my God. And we don't get that with gorgeous and Southern. That's not good enough. Again, comparable title. But I think this is really a fun pitch that, again, like
great. It's like it has screenplay.
It does.
Written all over it.
Romantic comedy.
Yeah.
And again, like I've kind of fallen in love with Emmy, and I'm rooting for her to get away from all the jerks and get together with somebody who's going to treat her right. So you succeeded in that in a very big way.
Go ahead.
All right. Last pitch, ladies and gentlemen. Swallow and Popjoy by Tegan Whalen. London, 1814. Young 14-year-old John Popjoy steals a gelding and is transported to Australia. He works hard, despite receiving little food and being flogged at every opportunity. John attempts to find freedom but fails. Hope comes to John when he meets fellow convict William Swallow. William has already escaped his transportation twice, and he is formulating a cunning new plan to return to their home country, and John is part of it. Based on the true stories of both men, Swallow and Popjoy tells the interconnected biographies of the convicts, asking just what motivated the prisoners to make the extraordinary choices that led to one of the most thrilling escapes in Australian convict history.
Nice. I think that everybody knows that Australia is filled with what was populated by convicts, but I actually don't know any of the stories.
Right.
And so I found this very intriguing. And if this is one of the most famous stories, especially for Americans, I don't know if you are an Australian author, but it would certainly appeal to the Australian audience, but I think to the American and the British audience as well. I'd like this more meat in this pitch. It's very short, and I don't get enough of the world in which they're in and what it means to be a convict. So you have a great setup for a story, and you have the historical relevance of it. But for the reader now who doesn't know anything about it, we need more detail.
I also don't get enough sense of who these characters are. Who are these people? Who is 14-year-old John Popjoy? Why is he stealing a gelding? What does he want in life that he can't have? What are we, yes, we're obviously rooting for him to escape, but every great book, a main character has an exterior motivation and an interior motivation that makes them choose what actions they take and who they are. And we don't get that really. Yes, obviously they want to escape prison. Who wouldn't? But I don't understand who these people are. I don't get enough of a sense of their personalities, what they look like, etc. And that really, for me, is a deficiency of this pitch that needs to be addressed.
Okay, David and I are going to announce a winner. However, before we do that, I'd like to ask everyone a question while we confer briefly, which is if you can put in the chat box whether you would prefer a webinar to start at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're trying to figure this out of what is a better time, especially for people on the West Coast. So if you could put that in the box. And also you can have any discussion that you would like while we're having this brief conference. When we come back, we'll announce the winner. We'll make a few other announcements. And then we're going to answer some of the questions that people have that have come up during the webinar, and you can stay on or feel free to go. So go ahead and discuss. David and I are going to step out for 1 minute and be back.
Go ahead, you choose. I'll talk.
Oh, okay, good idea.
Arielle is going to choose our winner whilst I speak with you. Someone had sent a question in about comparable titles, and we said this over and over again. Remember when they used to have records and they used to have skips in them? That's what we were. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on how I do that. I find 10 to 15 books that are similar to mine in the broadest sense of that word. Everyone says, oh, there's no book that's exactly like mine. Well, of course there's not a book that's exactly like yours, but we're talking about the big picture. Similar themes, similar characters, similar writing style, similar time, place. Think big. So what I do is I first go to an independent bookstore that is it will serve two functions. You go there and you find the person, whatever your book is. If it's a YA novel, you find the person who's in charge of the kids' book. If it's a biography, you find the person in charge of nonfiction. If it's a novel, you find the person who's in charge of that section of the bookstore. And you tell them, look, I'm writing a book about this. Do you have any books that are similar? And they will undoubtedly give you a couple of names of books. And while you're there, look in your section. Become familiar with your section. That's your job. Research your section. Look for books that you think, oh yeah, I'd love to be published by whoever did this book. And you look in the acknowledgement section. I'd like to thank my agent. I'd like to thank my publisher. Start making a list of all these books that are similar to yours, who's agented them, who's published them. Then you go home. And by the way, when you're at the bookstore and you do this, you have to buy a book. That's crucial. And hopefully you're going to make a connection with somebody at the bookstore. Oh, we have a winner.
Okay.
Okay. Lots of great pitches. First of all, applause for all
everybody. Woo! I hope we hear applause around the world for everybody who had the bravery to pitch. We heard so many great things, and we wish you the very best with all these books.
There's a number of books here.
There were so many books, but there was one that felt the most professional, ready to go, and that pitch is the Anger album.
Woo, woo, woo.
So congratulations. I actually don't even have, do you have the person's name handy right here?
I don't have it.
I'm going to give the name. And while we're looking up the name of the author, just a couple quick things again, which is that we will be doing this free webinar where anyone will get to pitch. And all you have to do is buy a copy of our book. Again, it's $1.99 until March 15th, and you just send the receipt to david@thebookdoctors.com. And the fan favorites voting begins tomorrow, so please vote for people whose pitches you love. And also, we want to encourage people to keep writing during Camp NaNoWriMo.
Yes, please.
If there's anything that helps getting published more than anything else, it's to keep writing.
Yes, and rewriting and rewriting.
Writing and rewriting. And so that happens in April. CampNaNoWriMo.org. Bless you.
Thank you.
The Anger album is by Leanne Daniel. Leanne, awesome job.
Fantastic job.
And
email us.
for those of you who want to stay on for a few more minutes, we're going to answer some questions that came in during the pitch. Pitchapalooza. So, so here's, this is interesting. One thing that we told you to fix is to emphasize the LGBTQ element, but it's actually a plot twist. Any ideas on how to mention it without ruining the twist?
As we said earlier, one of the most difficult things about a book or a pitch is what to reveal and what to conceal. So, you know, if you're pitching a mystery, you don't want to end the pitch with, and in the end, the butler did it. You don't want to do that. And you don't want to reveal something that is going to, you know, ruin the experience of reading the book for the reader. However, if you conceal too much, then we don't quite get what's great about your book oftentimes, and it leads to confusion. And if you're pitching your book as an LGBTQ book, then we have to see how that's going to manifest in some way. Otherwise,
you're going to lose that audience, which is your core audience.
That's right.
So we need something there.
Like, we have a publisher who does specifically these kinds of books, and when she reads this pitch, I feel like she's going to be like, well, where's the meat for me in it? No pun intended.
Did you say something just now about comparing yourself to very well-known authors? Okay, so there's a question here about that. How does one compare their book to Ann Tyler or Elizabeth Berg? It seems an overstatement or arrogance. So we typically, we prefer that you choose books that show your deep knowledge of the category in which you're writing. And that means not the obvious huge New York Times bestsellers. That said, sometimes you just have to. And if you have to, then you say more something along the lines of, I am inspired by authors such as blah, blah, blah.
Or readers of Anne Rice will enjoy my book.
Yeah, although even that is a little hard to pull off sometimes. And please, please, please don't ever compare your book to Harry Potter. Okay. I wonder if I should say my novel is book one of a series in the pitch.
We get that a lot, and it's a really interesting question. We had a couple of those pitches here. I don't think you want to lead with that. And in fact, I sold a multi-book series, and I didn't even mention that there was going to be more books. What I did was I constructed a fantastic pitch, and I had the whole plot for the second book all mapped out down to every detail, so that when they asked me, what do you got that's next, I could answer that question in a really professional way that made them go, yes, we're going to give you a 2-book deal rather than just the one.
The one exception to this is if you are pitching in a genre where a series is expected. Like if you are doing a mystery series with a sleuth or something like detective. Yeah. So that's the exception there. Okay.
But you can slip it in at the bottom. A couple people did this in a sort of innocuous way, that I think if you're going to do that, that's how you should do it, at the end of the pitch.
Okay. Is a resume portion a requirement in a pitch? That is an excellent question. So a lot of times in these pitches that we heard today, if someone gave me information about them, it made me feel more confident about the pitcher themselves, whether they had a degree in creative writing or they were a professional ice dancer or whatever it was. It gave me confidence that they would be able to pull off the writing. Now, a lot of times people say, well, I don't have anything that will make people think that I can write this book. I'm not a writer, blah, blah, blah. That gets into more dubious territory, but it's still important there. For example, one of my favorite examples of a bio was someone who wrote a memoir about being a complete loser. And his bio read, he said, I live in New York City.
That's it. No accomplishments.
That was it. 0 accomplishments. And that was part of the joke of it. Now, sometimes people don't even realize that their accomplishments are part of helping us prove that you can write the book. For example, if you're writing a thriller that has a nurse in it and you're a nurse, that's relevant.
Or if you're writing a book about libraries and books in a library, if you're a librarian, that's going to be enormously helpful.
Yeah. Or if you're a marketing professional, that's really important, because then people are going to know you're going to be able to get your book out in the world.
We were just working with a client who wrote a book about a medical thriller. and it turns out he's one of the top leading medical dudes in his area, you know, that's what you're going to lead with. He was such a renowned person in his profession. He didn't even put that in his pitch.
Yeah, in fact, someone here says, I take it's okay to try and sell yourself in the pitch. That's your job.
Yes, it is your job.
You have to sell yourself.
Yes,
You're
you
up
do.
against so many people,
Yeah.
and you have to convince people that you are the one that they want to take on, because the relationship with an agent or an editor is like a marriage in many ways. So they want to know that they're going to get along with you.
And it might even become a marriage, which is, she used to be my agent.
That's true.
Now I'm married to her.
How long should a pitch be? Should it be 250 words?
It can't be longer than 250 words. Let's put it this way. Our pitch, let's do the pitch for our book.
Okay. The essential guide to getting your book published is a step-by-step, blow-by-blow explanation of how to take an idea you're passionate about, make a book out of it, get it published, and deliver it into the hands, heads, and hearts of readers all over the world. Sorry.
Whoa, I got smacked in the nose for my trouble. So that takes 19 seconds.
Yeah.
19 seconds.
Now, we would have added our bio to that as well if we were doing a formal pitch to a publisher and said, you know, we're the Book Doctors, we've written X number of books, blah, blah, blah.
And as a comparable title, we would say our book is the What to Expect When You're Expecting
of publishing. So that might take us up to about 40 seconds, something like that. However, as you could see, sometimes people's pitches were too short.
Yeah.
We didn't get enough into them. So we used 250 words as somewhat of a guideline.
And there were some pitches that were sent in that were like 2 pages long. I just erased them. I didn't even hardly read them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we're going to take one more question. Oh, well, people did think that we were abducted by aliens.
Oh, yes, we were
while
briefly.
that happened,
briefly.
and that is true.
That is true.
Okay, so, sorry. How do you balance being specific without revealing too much plot in the pitch?
Well,
we'll end with that one.
Yeah, that's a very good question that applies to both pitches and to books.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you reveal? How much do you conceal? And it, to me, you know, it's a trial and error situation. One thing that I don't think people do enough is test their pitches, as they don't test their books enough. The first thing I do when I'm going to sit down to write a book is I write a 250-word pitch. And I'm constantly testing it with people that I know, people that are my friends, people that are my colleagues, people who are my fellow writers. But also, whenever anyone asks me, and I advise all of you to do this, they say, well, what are you up to these days? I'm writing a book. When someone says, what is your book about? You have 1 minute to tell them that. And you will find that certain things you say in your pitch are going to make people perk up, and certain things are going to make them glaze over.
Falsely.
Eliminate those parts and focus on the parts that make people excited. And, you know, if you don't reveal enough to us, it leaves us cold. If you just say, oh, a tragedy ensues, or terrible things happen, that's not going to make me engage emotionally, mentally with your property. There has to be enough concrete details. And you saw this as we went through the pitches. Those little phrases that are particular to your world that you've invented as a writer, those are the things that are going to elevate your pitch. And yes, again, you don't want to reveal, you want to leave us at a cliffhanger. That's what you want to do.
The point of a pitch is to make people say, I need to know what happens next.
What happens next?
I want to read this book.
That's right.
Well, we want to thank you all very much for participating. We want to thank NaNoWriMo, which is such a wonderful and special organization.
Spread the word to every writer you know.
And so helpful for developing all of us as creative people out in the world. If you have additional questions, you can
email us.
You can email us, Arielle@thebookdoctors.com or David@thebookdoctors.com. Again,
I wrote a novel, What Now, Now What? Camp NaNoWriMo. These are things that we've seen over and over again, that when people engage with a community that is filled with writers, it helps them to succeed as a writer. And we'll leave you with, I've made them 5 basic principles now that we see over and over again with all kinds of writers who succeed. Research, connection, connectivity,
networking,
writing. Yes, you have to write. Perseverance. Can't emphasize enough how important that one is. And this, I've added the 5th one. You gotta have fun with this stuff. There has to be joy and passion that permeate through everything that you write.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It was lovely to meet you over YouTube.
Thanks very much.
And we look forward to seeing you again at other webinars and at live events too. So
thanks.
Thanks everybody. Good night.
Bye.